All right, so number 3 is easier. There's no fractions, there's no zeros, so the factored form is really easy. To write the factored form, f of x equals, you're going to do x minus the 1, x minus the 4, and then x plus the 3. Yes, ma'am?
Oh, are you not going to find the expanded form of the second one?
Oh, thank you. I meant to. Okay. So let's stop right here. I forgot to expand this one. All right. So when we're expanding, I would multiply these two together first, and then at the end you can distribute an x through. So when we multiply these two, 3x times x is 3x squared. And then 3x times 3 is a positive 9x. So that's distributing the 3x. And now we have to distribute the negative 2. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. And negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. So on this one, these two in the middle do add, so we should do that. But we still have that x hanging out in front. So the final expanded form, or standard form, is when we distribute this x. So it's going to be y equals, x just makes everything go up a degree. So this goes from squared to cubed. This goes from a regular x to a square, and this goes from just negative 6 to negative 6x. Alright, so in number 3, we got the factored form, and now we have to expand. And I'll tell you what I always do. I always take, if there's no opposites, I always take and multiply the two that have the bigger numbers first, because then it's easier to distribute smaller numbers. Okay, so it doesn't matter. You could multiply these two and then distribute this, and still get the same right answer. Okay, but I would multiply these two and get x squared plus 3x. So x squared plus 3x. Now we have to distribute the negative 4. And when we distribute the negative 4, what is negative 4 times x? Negative 4x. And then negative 4 times positive 3 is negative 12. So this one, this part gets a little easier. We can make it a negative 1x. All right, right now you're thinking, okay, these aren't hard, but they're long. You're right. What we're doing is not really hard. It's just a lot of distributing. It just takes a while. So we're almost there, because now we got to distribute this one through this. So the x goes all the way through, and everything goes up a degree. So when I distribute the x, it becomes x cubed minus x squared minus 12x. And then you distribute the negative 1, and that negative 1, all it's going to do is make the signs change. So it goes from a positive x squared to a negative x squared. From a negative x to a positive x. And from a negative 12 to a positive 12. Because multiplying by negative 1 just changes the sign. Alright, so now we got to put the things that are like together to get the final expanded form. Okay, it's going to be y equals, I've only got one cube. Then I've got a negative x squared, and a negative x squared makes 2. Negative 2x squared. Then I've got a negative 12x and a positive 1x. It makes it a negative 11x. and then a 12 at the end.
Is there ever going to be a shortcut for this, or is this it?
No, this one doesn't have a shortcut, which means we won't ask you to do a ton of them on your test. You'll probably have one. Maybe one easy one and one a little bit harder, but not more than two. Yes, sir.
Are you just doing them like in specific order, like X minus 4, X plus 3, because it's easier?
Well, when we write our final answer, that's a good point, Christopher. When we write our final answer, we should always start with the biggest exponent, the greatest degree, and work our way down to the least. So our final answer should be in that order, greatest to least.
So why don't you like in the factored form?
Oh, why did I start right here? You could have done these two first, and then distributed the x plus 3. That's totally fine.
So
You just get choices. You pick two and do them. Now, if you have opposites, you should always do those opposites together first. Okay, so let's talk about this 1/2. That's the harder kind, like up here. So if we take this and we try to undo it to figure out that factor, what do I do first? Times by 2. So now I got 2x equals 1. And then what do I do with that 1? Move it over, subtract it over. So my first factor in factored form is going to be 2x minus 1. And then my next factor is x minus 5. And my next factor would be what? X plus 2. Okay, now this one, it really doesn't matter the order that you multiply them in. You can pick 2 and do 2 first, and then distribute the 3rd. You might pick these 2, and then distribute this. You might pick these, it doesn't matter. There's nothing that really helps us out here. I'm going to pick these 2. And can I do this part in my head, guys? Can you do it with me? Negative 5x and positive 2x. What is negative 5 and positive 2? Negative 3x. So you can do that too on your work. If you don't want to show this step right here, and you want to do that part in your head, you can do that. And then negative 5 times positive 2 is 10. And then we got to distribute the 2x and then the negative 1. So 2x goes all the way through. 2x gives me 2x cubed. Negative 6x squared. And positive 20x. So it doubles it, and it made everything go up a degree. That's what the 2x will do. And then the next one's negative 1. And negative 1 just changes the signs. So it makes it a negative x squared, a positive 3x, and a negative 10. And then my last step for expanded is putting it in the right order and then adding up like terms. So the cubed term is going to come first because it's the biggest. Now we put the squares together. Negative 6 and negative 1 makes negative 7. Yes? Where?
Or like negative 3x, wouldn't it be?
Oh, this should have been negative 10 right here. So it makes positive 10 right there. Thank you. All right, now we can put the x's together. And that gives us 23x. And now that I've been corrected, we all know that's a positive 10. Thank you. Okay, we're only going to do 5 and 6 together today, even though it goes to 8 on your page. And then what I'd like to do is I would like to see last night's homework, and if you haven't finished finished it for your regular class, we can work on that. And those of you that have already been to math class today, you can work on tonight's homework. Or those of you that have not been, but you understand after this lesson, you can get a head start on tonight's homework, okay? So these are the last two we're going to do in class today. Now, this one has a weird and this one has a weird. So if we do these two, then we will have seen all the weird stuff. All right, the first thing we're going to do is the factored form. Now, let me tell you, if your math teacher only gave you positive 2i, you know negative 2i also has to be a root because imaginaries go together. So if 2i is a root, negative 2i is a root. If 5i is a root, negative 5i is a root. If negative 3i is a root, positive 3i is a root. Imaginaries always go together. And complex also. So if 1 plus 2i is a root, then 1 minus 2i must also be a root. So even if your math teacher gives you one of them, you know the other one has to be a root. So that's the first thing I want to talk about with this problem. This one I gave you both. Now when we go to write those factors, it becomes x minus 2i and x plus 2i and then x minus 4. All right, this is where the rule about multiplying the opposites is very important. Because if you start with these conjugates here, it gets nice. But if you started with these two, it would get ugly. So we always want to do those opposites, okay? All right, so let's start here. X times x, x squared. Now let's look at this. This becomes a positive 2ix, but this is a negative 2ix. What happens with the positive and the negative? They cancel. So whenever we have opposites, that's going to happen. And then the last thing we do is negative 2i times positive 2i is a negative 4i squared. But what does that I squared do, guys? It changes it to a positive 4. So that first one is just x squared plus 4. And then we multiply it times the other one, x minus 4. So we distribute the x squared, and we get x cubed minus 4x squared. Then we distribute the 4, and we get positive 4x minus 16. And that's my expanded form, or standard form. So even though the eyes look uglier, they're actually nicer. Okay, same thing with your radicals. If one of your roots is the square root of 2, the other one has to be a negative square root of 2. If you had a square root of 7, the other one would have to be a negative square root of 7. Radicals come in pairs just like the imaginaries. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you've got the negative 2i squared would become 5, or negative 2 squared, and then would it become an I, because it's a negative?
If it was a negative under there, yes, ma'am, it would become an I.
But if it's positive and negative, is that outside the side or inside?
The positive and negative is on the outside. It's not on the inside. So when we go to write these, it just looks like this. Excuse me, I've started with minus every time. X minus root 2 and x plus root 2. And then x minus a negative 5, which makes plus 5. So this is the factored form. Complete linear factorization right there. So if we multiply these back, when we do the opposites, we multiply the first ones. The outside cancels with the inside. They're opposites. Positive root 2x and negative root 2x. Those cancel. And then we have a have negative times a positive, which is a negative. And we get the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. Anytime we multiply a radical by itself, we're just left with what's under the radical. And the reason why is the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4. What is the square root of 4? 2. So that's one of our rules with radicals. Whenever you multiply a radical times itself, you just get what was under the radical. Anytime, no matter what that real number is. Okay. And now we distribute. We distribute the x squared, and we get x cubed plus 5x squared. Then we distribute the negative 2x minus 10. And that's my expanded form. Okay, so today I'm kind of giving you a break. That's all we're going to do in here. So one of two things happens. You take out your math worksheet from yesterday in your regular math class, and you either finish the front if you haven't finished, or you can start working on the back. The front was yesterday's stuff, the back is today's.